Next up is Safe House by Yannick Galaski. Really, really smooth camera work here. Nice blocking, nice framing. And of course, nice color grade as well. Pulls off the teal and orange thing without it looking too cartoonish.
Ja, ich bin's. Hast du die Kohle? Nee, mir auch nicht. Ich glaube, ich bin safe.
And that's the end. Okay, so I think that was a good one shot because I didn't really notice the camera too much. And this is something that brings a lot of one shots down. Something that makes them sort of annoying actually is when you notice the movement of the camera because the camera is just moving to move. It's just moving to be fancy. But here there was a definite reason for the camera to be moving. We're following our subject, we're tracking with our subject. We smoothly move into him looking out the window. And he removes his hoodie. And that's a little bit of a character touch. Because of course, if you're outside and you're running around and you're trying to conceal your identity, then you're gonna have the hoodie up. But once he comes inside, because he was overheated, because he was sweaty, he wanted to lower the hoodie, and also he's in the safe house, so he doesn't need the hoodie. And of course, I'm massively over-explaining a super simple little thing here, but those kinds of touches add a lot of realism to your scenes because they add things that people would do unconsciously if they were actually living out the scenario that you're presenting. And then we quickly get a sense of his mental state. He's paranoid, he's exhausted. See that with one little glance, he looks out the window, right? That tells us he's paranoid. And then he breathes out there and he's catching his breath. So good job with letting us know how the character's feeling right at the beginning. And let's take it back. Let's start here. So he walks in the room, right? And the camera could have stayed wide behind him as he walked up to the window. That would have been another way to play it. And it may have worked that way. But this is a very safe way to play it so that your audience knows what's going on, and so that stays very clear. We move into a close-up, seamlessly into a close-up of him, and then we get to see his face clearly here. He's open to camera. And what I mean by open to camera is that your character's body is mostly facing the camera, so their chest is facing camera, as opposed to being like this, right? It's harder to know what I'm feeling when I'm facing like this. It's easier to know what I'm feeling when I'm more like this. So the character is intentionally blocked to be open to camera. Here, he's not quite open to camera, but very soon he moves open to camera. So that's just one thing I want to point out to you, because when you're blocking out your one-shot scenes, you really need to pay attention to if the audience can actually see the face of your character. Your audience will miss a lot if they can't see the face of your character. So if it's important for the emotion to be clear, then usually you want to have the character facing open to camera. See here, he's closed to camera.
Hast du die Kohle?
But that's okay, because this part of the scene is just establishing exposition, sorry. This is expository dialogue. We are understanding why he ran to the safe house, because there was some sort of a transaction that was probably like a drug deal or something, a money exchange. So now we know why this guy is in the scene. It looks like a robbery that went wrong. You got the money? Me neither. Something went wrong. Nobody got the money. They were supposed to get the money. So this is not an emotionally important moment. It was much more important to know his emotions earlier. So that's why this is good blocking. We save the close-up for when we need it. And then we move into this wider shot, which is still beautifully composed, when we don't need to focus on his emotions as much. And then we go back. Here, he goes into darkness, which is fine because it doesn't last very long, but it would have been nice if there was a little light here, just something to rim light his face as he walks here, because that would have made it a little bit clearer as to, for that moment where he sort of sighs like that. Not a big deal, but would have been nice. But actually there was a little light on the wall behind him, which is nice. I don't know if that was just natural light or if they opened a door for this or what, but see that little bit of light back there keeps it from being a black pit in the hallway. And those are things to look out for when you're using natural light. Try to open doors, try to open windows, and maybe, you know, shape the blinds or something to create these pockets of light. Yeah, then he walks back in, looks out the window, sits down, and we have this lens flare. And of course, cinematographers love lens flare. What's great about this is that the lens flare happens just, like the sun is just barely peeking into the frame. And if they had shot this 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes later, that flare would not have been there. Anyway, yeah, that's mainly what I have to say about Safe House. It has the stinger at the end with the police being there. Boom, whip pan. The whip pan adds the final dynamic tension. So good job with that. And good job wrapping it all into one take that doesn't feel forced. I think it actually feels more natural than my one take did in my, in my challenge video, because this is really the best way to shoot a scene like this, is just with, one long take rather than cutting it up, because we're following this guy in a tense moment. There's just no reason to cut. All right, good job, Yannick. If you want to learn a whole lot more, then join my film school Unscripted Studio, where I teach my unique style of improvisational filmmaking. You'll learn storytelling, directing and shooting, gear, editing, transitions and effects, and building your business. And most importantly, you can join our online community forum where you'll do filmmaking challenges, share your work, and get creative feedback. This is the most important part of becoming a better filmmaker. So check out the link in the description and join us at Unscripted Studio. Next up, we're watching Priorities by Winner C. Interesting low pass filter with the slow motion. Nice transition. Okay, here's the turning point of the story. The dog is perfectly cast. Bones matter above all else. Okay, so I just kind of like some of the techniques in the shooting with that one, and the story, of course, has a pretty good punchline, that her priority is the phone. And the title is very important, of course, in order to get the punchline. So I would have put the title here at the beginning of the video, because just in case people find this video without seeing the YouTube post, they wouldn't know the title and they wouldn't really get the joke as much. So yeah, I would put the title in the video itself. Now at the beginning, it would be nice if it was established a little more clearly somehow that she was bored, or that, she was, I don't know, needing something, because she's sitting here and she's already got her laptop computer out. So I'm not sure if that's the best setup for the joke, but it's fine. I can't think of anything better right now. And then there's the slow motion there. So here's a technique you can use when you're filming any sort of an action scene. Have stuff go toward the camera and away from the camera directly. In other words, put the camera in the line of action. So the line of action is the place that the character is moving to or from. So if you're filming a car and you're on the line of action, then that car is either driving away from you or it's coming straight toward you. And that's the most dangerous place for the camera to be. It's also the most exciting place for the camera to be. And notice that here, she's running directly away from camera, and then she throws the pillows directly toward camera. So we're maintaining action on the line of action to keep things exciting. Because if we just viewed this from the side, there wouldn't be as much danger to the scene. And you probably won't even think about it as you watch it, right? You're probably noticing more just the slow motion effect. But it also gives us a transition point, as you can see there. But yeah, the line of action is really important when you're shooting an action scene. You want to try to keep the camera in the line of action in the most intense parts of the scene. That transition could have been a little smoother. You see that kind of stops and then moves again. And then this is another easy transition to do that works quite well. Notice that we're following the line of action. She throws directly toward the camera, then she pulls the pillow directly away from camera. And that's why that shot works. So it's better to do it like that than have her pull the pillow to the side, let's say, right? Because if she threw the covers toward camera, and then in this shot, the pillow moved like this way to the side, it wouldn't have looked as cool. It's much cooler if stuff goes toward camera and away from camera. And also, we get a clear shot of her face. That's always a bonus. You know, having a clear shot of your main actor's face in as many shots as possible whenever the emotion is important, that's an important thing to pay attention to. Stuff going straight toward camera again. And now we slow down halfway through the video. Good job, right at the 30-second mark, there is the twist in the story. Because your audience is expecting some sort of a change in the pace or the tempo. You know, good storytelling requires change. And having a twist right at the halfway mark in a short video like this is a good way to make sure that your audience watches until the end. So she hears her phone, that's our twist. And then we're looking straight at her when she drops down, right? Because that keeps what she's looking at a mystery. We don't know what she's looking at yet because we can only see her face, but we get her emotional reaction to it. This is a movie making technique I'm sure you've seen in a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows. You probably never thought about it unless you've shot scenes like this before, but when there's a big reveal in your story that's about to happen, and that reveal is something that your character sees, then you might want to try filming a direct close-up where your character's almost looking into camera or even looking directly into the lens. Film a close-up of them like this as they react to it first. Hold that close-up for a long time and then finally cut away to what they're seeing. And in this case, it's funny because we reveal that what she was so mystified by here, or what she was so interested in, is her own tiny dog with gigantic googly eyes. So that's pretty funny. Those cuts, I'm not sure why there's so many cuts here. I assume it's because it was hard to get the dog to move, but I would have switched angles. I would have cut to probably a top down as the dog walks away. I would have probably stood on the bed and held the camera like this and then had the dog walk away, because here the camera has to cut and move in. There's like a lot of messiness here with the cutting to reveal the phone. Jump cutting and stuff there. And usually a punchline works better when it happens all at once. Like when you're telling a joke, right? You want the punchline to come quickly. You want people to realize the punch of the joke right away, all at once. But in this video, it takes like 3 shots to do the punchline, or 4 shots. Dog, dog, dog walks away, and then she grabs the phone. Yeah, so that's 4 shots to sell the punchline when it could have been done in just 1. We have, first the close-up where we see the dog's face, and then we cut to a top view of the dog, and the dog walks away, and you see the phone, and maybe the camera's like pushing toward the phone. So you get it. Okay, this is what matters. The phone is the punchline. Boom. And then we cut to her here reacting, being happy with her phone. So that would be my main criticism of the story here. Otherwise, good job, winner C on priorities. Next up is the trailer by Juso Heino. Super meta. I'm calling. I included that one mostly because of the punchline, because it's so meta, because it's obviously a joke on the video that I posted on YouTube. And you know, the filmmaking it's got an interesting style to it. It's a little cheesy, but it's charming. And yeah, I think mainly I just kind of liked the end. I liked the reveal of the title, Get Her Too, because you know the video that I made in the Board Filmmaker Challenge was called Get Her, and the video that she was watching on her phone and that kept popping up on the TV was the video that I made. So very meta, funny punchline. I don't know how much I want to critique this from a story perspective because it is kind of a spoof, so it's supposed to be over the top. The only thing I would say is I don't know why she's super freaked out. Is it two different phones? Sorry, let me watch this again. Okay, so her Sony phone rings there. And she walks in the kitchen. Oh yeah, and another phone's ringing. So I'm calling on two phones at once. That's why she's so freaked out. That moment, I think, could have been a little bit clearer. And I'm not sure how I would do it exactly. I think, you know, we're going for a one-shot thing here. So he's trying to avoid cutting away too much. But I think for this particular scene, I would actually cut more. Because at the beginning, what I really want to get is, I want to get her emotional state. Like, we can sort of see that she's bored, or maybe she's interested as she's watching. Yeah, I want to know more about her as a character, because I think it could be even funnier. Maybe we establish that she's a super fan. Like, she's super into it. She's watching like this, and she's learning, or whatever, in the beginning. So she's a super fan of, you know, of my YouTube channel, and then the phone rings, and it's me. And then she's like, whoa, it's Brandon? And then we have like a close-up of her face as she reacts to the name. And then we clearly see, I don't know why she didn't answer the phone, but whatever. Then we have to clearly see that she doesn't answer the phone. And we don't really clearly see that here. We see the phone ring, and then we see her get up. But see, it's not clear if she picked up the phone or not, until you see this other phone, and this one's also ringing. Oh, there are cuts. Sorry, I thought it was a one shot, but I just wasn't paying attention. That's a sign of good editing, actually, when you don't notice the cuts. So yeah, there's just a few points of clarity I would add at the beginning to really firmly establish, like, what does this character care about? Does she care about my YouTube channel? Because maybe she's bored with that, right? She's bored with the YouTube channel, and then the phone rings, and she looks over. She's like, Brandon, I don't need to answer that. And that would give her a reason to ignore the phone. She gets up, she goes to the kitchen, and then the phone's ringing again. And maybe she slowly approaches the phone the second time, right? Because she's like, whoa, two phones are ringing at once? What's going on here, right? Instead of just walking straight to it, maybe we slow her down, and she approaches like, whoa, what's going on with my phone? And then she picks it up, and we see that's Brandon again, and we need another close-up that says Brandon there. Another close-up of the phone to very clearly tell the audience, yes, this is the same person calling on two phones at once. Then we need to cut directly to a close-up of her face as she reacts. Because this, I mean, it's sort of clear. It's sort of clear, but it's not as clear as it could be. It's not crystal clear. And you know, the punchline and all the craziness, like all this stuff, will work better if we have a better sense of who our character is at the beginning. So anyway, those are my critiques, but really good job on the trailer. Let's move on. Next up, we are talking about Checkmate by Mark P. Nice opening shot. Nice track back shot there. Cool effect. Good job, Mark. I like that short film. Mostly what I like is the effect of the chess pieces moving by themselves and the way it was filmed. I liked these side view shots, these very elegant close-ups, sort of macro close-ups of the pieces moving on their own, and the way that they sort of grind across the table. It's very creepy. I assume that was done with a magnet under the chess table. It's a clever gag because you had to move the chess table, right, between the different angles. So all these close-ups, the chess table, or the chessboard is directly above the magnet somehow. But for the wider shots, probably the chessboard was positioned differently. Where's the wider shots? Like here. Because the magnet probably couldn't go through the table. So I assume you had to move the chessboard off the table and then put the magnet directly under the chessboard for the close-ups. And then, you know, for the wide shots of the table, those were filmed with the chessboard on the table. So just that little visual gag is nice. I like it. Story-wise, so I have some ideas. I mean, this is a very open sort of story. You know, nothing's really explained. So I feel like it could have been more impactful if there was a bit more drama to the game. Because she's basically just casually playing chess, right? And then the ghost wins. Which is fine, but it doesn't seem to mean anything to her. And maybe this is just, you know, the limitations of acting or whatever, I don't know. But she seemed to have just no reaction. So, I would have liked to see a consequence for our main character when she loses the chess game. And at the beginning, I would like to see her be a little bit more nervous about the game. I would like to see her intensely focused. Because one rule that I always use, you know, when I'm shooting stuff is the audience will only be interested if the character in the scene is also interested. So if your character is bored in a scene, then the audience probably won't be interested in what the character is bored about. You know, if there's like a TV playing and the character's just on their phone ignoring the TV, well, the audience isn't really going to pay that much attention to the TV unless we establish in some other way that the TV is important. So in this scene, we can only care about the chess game as much as she cares about the chess game. And she appears to sort of care, but only to the degree that one would care if they're playing against a friend and there's nothing really at stake. So that doesn't make the actual drama of the film all that high. So if we show in the beginning that she's super concerned about each move, like, you know, she makes a move like this, and then the ghost makes a move, you know, on its own, and then she's sort of horrified by the ghost's move, or she's thinking really carefully, or, you know, some sort of emotional reaction, and we see her getting more and more distraught each time the ghost makes another move and takes another one of her pieces or something, then we would know there's something big at stake. And then at the very end, you know, when the ghost wins, I don't know, maybe she dies, she has a heart attack and falls over. Or maybe she just disappears out of the scene. Something like that could happen. But yeah, the setup is great. I just want sort of you have sort of the meat, I guess, of the hamburger here, which is the chess game. I want to see a little bit more dressing around the bun. I want to see a little bit more story around it that makes us care more about what's going on. All right, so very good, Mark. Cool short film. All right, next up we're gonna watch Pecan Pie by Ibrahim Zafar.
Whole thing in a day. I'm not even kidding.
Dude, that pecan pie recipe was one I was looking for months.
Dude, you know who has good recipes? Let me see if I can find it. TikTok. Tell me, for all ages.
I'm not surprised that you referenced TikTok, story of your life.
But there is a flying one that I really want to do, but I just need someone to shoot it for me. I can't find it. But
I like the angles and the camera work
he's
here.
not here. He left last week. Should have left with them, but whatever.
Oh, so who's in the apartment with you?
No one, just me.
Very natural looking scene.
So who's that behind you?
Spooky twist. Okay, so that video is a good example of misdirection. The title implies something very casual. I mean, I can't imagine anything super dramatic being called Pecan Pie. And it is relevant to the plot because that's what they're talking about. So it sets up a different expectation for how the things are going to play out than how they actually play out, which is good. I also generally like the coverage that's done here. This is a good example of scene coverage. So wide shot here that establishes her location very clearly, and establishes where she is within her location. So we can see that she's alone in a dark apartment in a city, and she has her computer on, all within one shot, and a well-framed shot.
In a day,
So,
not even kidding.
you know, this has a very well-composed sort of, sort of a TV drama kind of feel here, because it's a steady, static shot that gives you all the info you need all at once.
That pecan pie recipe was when I was.
And then cutting here, this is a bit of a strange cut. I probably would not have done it because it's sort of a similar angle to the first shot, just a little bit closer. But it is also kind of like a POV shot of somebody who might be watching her.
Dude,
So, you know, having seen the video and watching it again, it does make sense that we would have that perspective.
Tell me for all ages.
And then, you know, this is just some natural dialogue, and that's kind of what I liked about this. The natural, the way that they're interacting with each other, it doesn't feel like scripted or rehearsed. Their expressions are very relaxed. And, you know, if these two people are non-actors, then it's kind of hard sometimes to get that performance on camera out of them. Even with actors, sometimes it's hard to get them to just relax and be natural. Like, look at the way she's sitting. The way she's sitting, you know, is the way someone would sit if they're actually on a video chat like this. In movies and TV shows, sometimes people sit too properly. Sometimes they sit like I'm sitting now when they're on video chat. And it just looks all very set up. It looks like a sitcom. It's very Big Bang Theory. And this feels a lot more real, the way she's sitting here. And her expression, and the way she says, "Who's that behind you?" Like, that's all very natural feeling. And you don't even think about it when you watch it, right? Because it just kind of feels like, hey, that's what this person's saying. But if she did it in a less natural way, you'd immediately notice. And her reaction, very natural. Boom, and then we cut away. I kind of wish we had seen a little bit more before the door closed. Just, I don't know, something a little bit more to make the ending punch a bit more. But other than that, you know, good job on Pecan Pie. I like the coverage. I like the look of it. It feels very professionally done. It feels like a drama show on Netflix or something. Okay, next up we have one just called BL Board Filmmaker Challenge, and this is by Nova Turient. Okay. I like the color palette here. And the contrast there, the flash cut. Nice transition to a new scene. This shot I'm not crazy about. Just backlighting. Oh. Very creepy. Your house is creepy, man. Well, what I like about that one, the color tone, the general way the scenes were covered. The scene coverage was done in a very clear way for the most part. And by that, I mean, let's go to the basement. Okay, so he's in the basement here, right? And he has to pick up a flashlight. We get a close-up of the flashlight, then we cut back to the other shot. Those insert shots, really important to capture. There was another moment here I want to talk about. So also, when he first gets there, see how he's looking around like that? Now this is going to be a little obvious, but when he looks around, it tells the audience that he's confused about his new surroundings. Seems super obvious, right? But it's actually really easy to forget moments like that when you're constructing a scene. It's really easy to just have the character start walking around their new environment, or maybe they're walking around and they're sort of looking around like this. But you need to sort of telegraph those moments. Like if somebody suddenly transports to a new location, they need to sort of do that look around before they start walking or doing anything else, because the audience needs to know that they're confused by this teleportation. Because imagine this, imagine he had a different reaction. So he teleports into the basement and then he looks around and he says, "Yes!" Right? Then you'd be like, wait a minute, this guy's happy now that he's in the basement. Or maybe he looked around and he said, cool, right? The way he reacts to his environment is everything to this story. And if we don't see a clear reaction, like maybe he gets transported to the basement, we have no close-up of him, and we just see sort of a back view of him here, and he just does this, and then he starts walking. Well, if that's what he does, then it will, sorry, cut that last, just walking, right? He's walking. So if we don't get a really clear reaction from him to his environment, then we really won't know how to feel for the rest of the video, and we won't know what the point of the video is. But here, it's clearly a scene of exploring a dangerous environment and an environment filled with mystery. So that's established well. This shot, out of focus, didn't quite work. I would have probably kept it focused on this lantern maybe, and just let all that play out of focus. And I may even have stopped down the lens a bit, because you've got plenty of light coming from the lantern, you got light coming from the flashlight, so you could probably drop the exposure a tiny bit, close down the aperture a bit so that he doesn't fall so far out of focus. And then you can have this action play out of focus there as he looks at the paper, and then he puts the lantern back, or he puts the little flashlight back. And when he puts the flashlight back, it would be in focus because your focus was already here. So you want to plan those shots so that the important stuff is in focus. I don't quite know what this means. The story is wrong. I don't know if it really matters so much, but you know, I would have liked to understand a bit more. Why is the story wrong? Maybe we established in the beginning somehow that he's a writer and he falls asleep while he's writing. I don't know. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. I think it's a good atmospheric little horror. I don't know if we need the ending where it's all a dream, because that's like the biggest cop-out. It's like the biggest cliche. It's to have like a shocking moment and the character wakes up and it was all a dream. So I think you could have chopped off that last shot. You know, just kill your character, have him die at the end, whatever. All right, good job. And last but certainly not least, we have one more, and this one is by Ankar Askar.
No. I just need one more. Please. I promise this is the last one.
We don't have much left. You know how hard it is to get it now.
I can't control it anymore. Please. Just one.
Okay, but this is the last one for today. Here.
Nice. Okay, so that one's basically a joke, and it's a well-played joke. You know, it has a setup, it has a misdirection, and then it hits you with a punchline that you didn't expect. I really thought this was about pills or something. I thought it was a very serious video when I first started watching it. So that's done pretty well. The coverage of the scene itself, I don't think it's great. Like the angle here.
I just need one more. Please.
We're just seeing the backs of two people and we're really far away. And the body language does kind of sell it. I get you're going for, I guess, a drama, like the feeling of a TV drama or something, because everybody's acting very dramatically, they're overplaying everything. And we're sort of limited by the environment too, as to how the scene can be blocked. But I probably would have blocked the beginning of it a bit differently. But her turnaround here, I mean, it's good, it's funny that she does that dramatic turnaround. We don't have much left. It's so artificial, you know, which creates the expectation that this is going to be like a soap opera. That zoom, I think, should have been going the other direction. It was zooming out, but it probably should have been zooming in on his face as he's talking. I was a little bit distracted by the zoom in this shot.
Just one.
Or you could even just leave the zoom out completely and maybe just crop it in a bit so he's not quite so far to the right of the screen. And here, he's at the edge of the frame. See the edges? So it's a little uncomfortable because the crop It's a little too tight. So this is why it's good to frame your shots a little bit looser if you're shooting for 2:3:5, which is the CinemaScope, the black bars, the aspect ratio. Just frame your shots a little bit looser than you think you need. And also, the camera, now this is getting really nitpicky, but the camera is tilted down a tiny, tiny bit here. And I would have tried to keep the camera straight, like facing straight out. Instead of tilting it down a little bit, I would have kept it just facing straight out. That way my vertical lines stay perfectly vertical. Because the style of this is very staged feeling, intentionally. It's supposed to feel like this is part of like a soap opera or something that's shot on a stage or in a studio. And to create that effect, you want the shots to be very rectilinear. You want all your lines to be vertical. You want things to be symmetrical. You want it to be very well composed, because that's how those shows look. So, I mean, you can see by the framing, you know, the camera doesn't move. We don't cut to any more close-ups. This is very static framing. This is very, very TV drama or film drama. And then the punchline is well sold because she's handing him not a roll of toilet paper, not a lot of toilet paper, just one square of toilet paper. So that was a good comedic choice because we can all relate to it. We know what that square is as soon as we see it. And then he sells it. He makes it funnier with this physical comedy by running into the bathroom. Boom. And she keeps looking at him. She stays in character. And we hold it for long enough for the audience to get the joke and laugh before we fade out. So good timing here. I would just, you know, maybe adjust the coverage a little bit at the beginning. Okay, so that's my review of the Bored Filmmaker Challenge videos. So I'm done with the challenge, but feel free to keep creating. It's really hard to stay inspired during this quarantine. So if you're bored, then watch my Bored Filmmaker Challenge video and then do the challenge yourself, because you might come up with something that otherwise you wouldn't feel inspired to do. So thanks again to everybody, and I'll see you next time.